Hello, 1, 2. Hello, 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 hello. Hello, everybody. How are we? Hello, 1, 2, 2, 2. Can you hear me? I'm just waiting for it to hook up. Seems to be a connection issue. Well, I seem to be coming through. Stream health looks a little bit low. I don't know why that is, but I'll just have to... interesting. Sorry, I'm just waiting for YouTube to tell me it's streaming. It seems to be. So I'm guessing it's all right. Yeah. We'll just have to take your word for it. I'm going to play you a vid because I've got the Arturia drum root preview that's got a couple of tweaks, but it will be nonetheless coming along the next day or so. Hello and welcome to another Sonic Lab. That's right, today we're going to look at the brand new Arturia drum brute Impact, which is this little fella here. This is the kind of little brother or sister of the full-blown drum brute. In many ways it's very similar, but it has a slightly cut down set of features. First one to notice really is it's got 10 analog voices as opposed to the higher count of the drum brute. It's also got less outputs. We've got the main output in mono plus 4 sub outputs. Plugging something into that removes it from the main mix. We've got kicks, snares, hats and the FM voice, more on that later. And the other thing that should really be emphasised is this is not like a cut down version of the drum brute, even though it has less voices. All the voices have actually been completely revoiced and designed by the guys at Arturia, making it a bit tougher and giving you a different palette of sounds. And the other thing that's been changed is obviously the price, because the drum brute Impact is significantly cheaper than the main drum brute. It's about 279 UK pounds. Other currencies will scroll below. And that makes it one of the most affordable analog drum machines with this kind of many features. So essentially we've got the same concept in a sequencer, which is song mode, which allows you to chain up to 64 patterns, 4 banks of patterns, and then each pattern can be up to 64 beats in length. We go into step mode to program. We can record in step mode just by pressing the actual steps, or we can do a record, and we've got an unquantized record as well. The other main difference is instead of the resonant filter on the output, we've got distortion, analog distortion. We've got the same sort of roller concept here, though I think the hardware is slightly different to that. There's also another feature which is called colours, and what colours does is allow you to have sort of 2 variants of the sound. You've got the main sound and then the second sound, which is a sort of preset enhancement. You can't change the colour setting, which is a bit of a shame. That would be nifty if you could have kind of like almost 2 voices, but you can't. So let's just start with the kick here. Variable decay, we can get a nice long booming, and it goes right down low to up high. In fact, if we come and have a look at the scope, I've got it plugged into my usual for synth waves. You can see at its highest point, the fundamental is probably around about 65 Hertz. Taking it right down, it goes super low. This is below 30 Hertz, so you get a massive booming kick with lots of thwack to it. There's more because now we can also add the colour. So if I just take the decay down a little bit, if I take the decay down a bit anyway, and you can hear, you get quite a reasonable sort of 909 emulation, but it's a bit different to that. So we'll switch the colour on, and that changes the flavour of the kick as well. Adds a kind of more of a distorted kind of techno, gabba, whatever you call it. I don't know what the genres are called. So you get a bit more sort of drive and crunch in that kick as well. So you get quite a nice voicing there. Coming back, we then got the snare. Now the snare, there was a bit of a criticism of the original drum brute that the snare just wasn't really cutting it. It wasn't quite tough enough. They've toughened it up a little bit here, and you've got a bit more, it's like a hybrid between a 808 and a 909. The sort of noise quotient and this kind of funk. And with the colour layer on, it seems to sort of create a bit of extra pitching around the tone thing, almost like introducing a second pitch. So that, to my ears, definitely sounds better than the original and sort of a bit tougher. Obviously, we can take the snare out and maybe process it via compressor, EQ, that kind of stuff. Next thing, we've got this clap. Which is a kind of filter cue type noise. Haven't got much of that kind of like, you know, like you can get from a Simmons claptrap or something. It'd be nice to have a bit more kind of size to it. Like there were more people clapping, but it's certainly quite nice. And when you're messing around with this, it sounds quite good. Adding the colour to that seems to sort of increase the cue on the noise a little bit. Next up, toms. Bibble bobble kind of toms, tuning these tunes the pitch together. I'd like to see it maybe going a bit higher, no decay or anything on that. These sort of double up. We can record individual tracks depending on which type we're in. Switching the colour on for the tom kind of adds a bit of distortion and a tiny bit more decay. And, you know, quite nice for an extra bit of harmonic flavour, but as I say, not quite enough decay. It'd be nice to have a little bit more decay on those tom sounds. Then we've got the cymbal, which is sort of your 808 style cymbal, but it's quite nice. You can do some stuff using it as a hi-hat. You can mess with the decay to get that thing. Adding the colour on that just seems to change the pitch of the ring mod aspect of it. Then we've got closed hi-hats. We can change the tone of that, which sounds a bit like a kind of slight filter mod. If we change to the colour layer, just seems to maybe add a bit of distortion. And then we've got open hi-hat, and the tone again changes the pitch. The tone affects both the tones of the closed and open. And then finally we've got this FM voice, which is kind of interesting. Which we can add the carrier mod. The carrier pitch is changed here, and then the modulation, which is kind of useful. It's an interesting sound and something that you can certainly add an extra pitch element, and you've got a separate output for that as well. One thing that is missing though is the rim shot, and the rim shot I find is quite useful in an analog drum machine because, you know, if you can obviously take the sync output of this because it's got a sync output as well as USB and over MIDI and two MIDI ports as well for clocking and playing the voices from external point. But what I like to do, or what a lot of people like to do, is to take one of the drum voices, perhaps they're not using like a rim shot, and use that to trigger an external sequencer or arpeggiator. So you might have a simple sequence pattern, but you're triggering it in unusual clock divisions by just programming a pattern in. I found I could do that with the FM voice. You do lose the FM voice, so you had to turn the decay right down, take the mod pitch down, and carrier pitch up, and turn it right up. But then I was able to trigger an external clock source and advance the sequences, you know, in an arrhythmic fashion, which is kind of cool. So that's the sounds. Like I say, they are a bit tougher. I mean, it's still, I guess the thing is, you know, the cymbals are the cymbals, so you're kind of stuck with those. If you wanted more of a 9090 type thing, you're out of luck here. It's very much in the kind of 808 sort of vibe, and there's not a massive amount of flavour between those sounds, though the hi-hat's tone does help and the colour does help. Incidentally, you can sequence the colour. There's a colour track as well, so you can sequence the colour actually using the step sequencer as well, because obviously if you're in step mode, the usual way that you would do this, if we just say there's a bass drum, if I play a pattern here, I'm not sure what's going to happen. You see I can record in real time, or I can just go into step mode and drop them in that way, which is kind of what you'd expect from a drum machine like this. Patterns can be up to 64 beats long, but you can also do a polyrhythm side of things as well. So pressing shift and going into polyrhythm means you can have different track lengths for each of the tracks, so you can create these kind of interesting moving patches and rhythms. And again, you know, the amount of steps that you might have, if we come back out of polyrhythm mode, I could say at the moment this is currently 2 bars long, but I could make it 4 bars long and then change the resolution by pressing shift and these buttons. This is in 16th resolution or triplets or 32s or whatever. So, you know, you've got all of that usual stuff that you can do. So that means you can do 12-step stuff for 6/8 and 3/4 and all of those sort of things as well. So there's some quite complex polyrhythmic stuff you can do. You'd have your kick on 1 and your hat on 3 and your whatever on 7 or 12 or 18 or 63. It's entirely up to you, but it does mean that you can get in there and do that kind of stuff. So there is a cool thing that I could do. If I just take this pattern, I go to erase, hit pattern, and then I've cleared the pattern out. Pressing shift, I can go in and out of quantize mode, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll start with in quantize mode. I've got the metronome on, which is here, kind of useful. I can turn the level of that, so that's really handy because quite often you don't get the starting point for that. Here, that's quantized, so that works nicely. But what I'll do is I'll just erase that again, and then I'm going to go into unquantized mode, shift and quantize, and now when I record, it won't quantize to the steps, and I'll try and play out of time. Shouldn't be too difficult. So you can hear there, I've actually got more of a sort of human feel, certainly on that track, but I could change that all up if I wanted to. It's worth mentioning, there are a few other features which are common to the other one. I'll come out of unquantized mode, we'll go to hi-hats. Let's put some kick drums in, just do that on the step mode kick. So we'll just go 1 and something like that. So then we just got a 1 bar pattern, which is pretty out there. So let's get the hi-hats in. Now obviously we can swing the entire lot, or we can just swing the selected track, very similar to the BeatStep Pro. Starting to get pretty jazzy, I think you'll agree. Other things that we can do is we can actually shift individual parts and put rolls in. So there's a few more features here. So let me just turn the tom down so that the rest of the stuff is in. Take the metronome off, put some, so let's see, we're in, quantized mode. It's all pretty cool, but what we can do is we can hold a step and then actually shift that step, so we can actually move. Hey Matt, I just want to check your audio.
Hello, Nick.
Hello, how are you doing?
Okay?
I can hear you okay. You're
Lovely.
a little bit grungy, but should be okay. Let me just check. Yep, looks all right.
I can turn the light on. Is that too bright?
I can't tell. I had to swap my monitors around, and everybody looks wrong in this monitor. Yeah, that looks all right. I mean, if that's not too intense, it looks like you're kind of rather smarting at the brightness of that. Turn it off and see how that comes off. I'm sure your camera can cope with that.
I know. Is that okay?
Yeah, that'll be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just playing out the let me just I had to rejig all the cameras because one of the monitors went. Oh, that's really no good at all. I'm going the wrong way. That's a bit better. That'll work. Righty-ho. Oh yeah, I was just playing out the Micro Brute. Sorry, I keep mini brute.
Hello and welcome to another 13. And I think, and it's worth forgetting.
I did a little jam at the end with just a bit of reverb on it, and it's really quite fun once you start sending out individual tracks.
Yeah. Sound-wise, are you really happy with it?
Sorry?
You're really happy with the sound? Good.
It's not bad. I mean, it's analog. There are limitations with analog machines, obviously, but it's quite vibey. I mean, for the price, it's hard to knock it.
Absolutely.
The distortion, really, I bring the distortion in on this, and it's got a really. I think it comes in a sec.
One. Hey.
Yeah, I've got yo ad.
One. Hey. One, two. Hey. One. Hey.
Could do with a little more level from you, yo ad, if you've got it.
One, two. Hey. One. Hey.
That's better.
One. Hello.
Right, where is that? There he is. Yeah, there we go. Oh, you're looking very, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, quite beardy, actually, for a start.
Yeah.
And also,
I wanted to protect my face from the cold.
I'll turn your air conditioning down. Pipe some of it our way. Yes, no, looking quite, what's the word I'm looking for there?
It looks nice and chilled in your studio. It's bloody hot in here.
Yeah, it's crazy hot in here too, but that's just the way it goes. Yeah, I've had to change everything around, so I've got a bit closer to the monitor, because the top monitor over there, we used to have a really nice HP kind of, proper studio grade, and it's just the LED's gone behind, and I just couldn't use it anymore, so I had to move the monitors around, and then I put it here, and then the thing fell off the wall, and then I had to put a shelf up. It's been all go here today, how it goes sometimes. All right,
that's right.
There we go. There's Matthew. Right, with a bit of Ableton Live in the background, by the looks of it.
Yeah, just doing some tracking for my new EP. Actually, I've just finished doing a live video that's just gone on YouTube, where I'm just doing some live patching with some oscillators and some distortion, and gelling it together using compression.
All right.
So yeah, just finished that. Getting asked a lot about my process and how I'm doing things on email, so I just thought I'd just do it on YouTube, live stream it.
Yeah, well, it's a good idea.
Send me a link if you like. I'd like to hear what you're doing.
Yeah, cool. Will do.
What was I'm trying to think of the word I'm looking at. You just look like a sort of Zeus or something, just kind of sat there.
Thank you.
Oh, I tell you what, I just did get, actually. I got the Prophet X just came today.
Ooh, how is that?
I might, let me just see if it might come through. Hold on a sec. I just need to turn the monitors up in here so I can hear it.
go. Can you close the curtain? I think it's no this one even. Thanks.
It's quite interesting. Anyway,
it sounds
it's
amazing.
Got a bit of.
It sounds really amazing. You know,
I'm not sure that this one's made the journey quite because they shipped it directly from the States, and I think there might be I might need to reload the samples from somewhere because it's not finding some of them. So I'm guessing there's been a bit of some sort of something maybe happened in transit. But so far,
it sounds amazing. It sounds really amazing. You know what? It reminds me. It reminds me of Prophet 2000 a little bit.
Right, I don't know that. I mean, I remember the synth, but I don't think I ever got.
Yeah, I used to have one. Well, if you ever want to sell the review unit, you know what to do.
Yeah, well, it's a funny story that because they said we'll send you it, and what tends to happen, they send us the review units, but then we have to pay the import duty on them, and I just said there's absolutely no way I'm paying import duty on a $5,000 synth because it's going to cost me like £1,000 to review it or something. So they sorted out getting it to us so that we didn't have to pay any import duty on it, or they paid the import duty. I'm not quite sure how they did it. So yeah, I'm not going to buy it. So I mean, but what I mean. There's no secret about it. What Dave Smiths often do is because they often ship from the States, they'll send it to the reviewer and they say, well, look, do you want to buy it at a discount? So in the case of the Rev 2, I didn't, but Yoad was interested, so he bought it off them at the discounted price. So, you know, it's not like there's a scam going on. It's just like sometimes, and I have thought in the past, I think, well, actually, I could buy it and then sell it and make a couple of £100, but when you've got the VAT and stuff, it's just not worth getting involved in all that, and it somehow feels a bit murky. So, you know, sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's like $5,000 this synth. I mean, it's an expensive beast.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's worth it, or at least, you know, discounted the price or some sort. It sounds lovely.
I mean, I've just been flipping through. It sort of reminds me of that, you know, with some electromechanical keyboards, you could just play any notes combinations, and even if they're discordant, it just sounds all right.
Yeah,
same thing from that. So you could, I mean, some of the things I was playing was
it's
like
that. The GS1 was like that.
Ah, what the Yamaha, right?
Yeah, that was a beautiful machine. That whatever you did just sounded amazing.
Right. Okay. I'm being told my mic is too low, so I'm turning it up. It's really hard to get the can't hear me. They say.
No.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
You can hear me. Yeah, it's just the. So hopefully that's all right now. Anyway, I've got that all sorted out. So we just saw Charles briefly show up, but I think he came in on the wrong channel. So he'll probably come in on the right one in a second. So we'll be ready to go. But we're all early. So Matt, how are you doing in terms of heat? Are you able? Oh, he's gone. Oh no, Charles, you're on the wrong link, mate.
Oh, I am. Okay. I didn't have a link for you.
Oh, didn't you?
I didn't get one.
Oh, really? I'm terribly sorry about that. Hold on. Let me just let me fix that. I do beg your pardon.
Do I hang up?
Yes. I'll forward this. Yes, you're right. Sorry about that. Oops.
Oh, he's gone. Oh no, Charles, you're on the wrong link, mate.
I'll send it to you now. There we go. So I expect Charles. I expect that means that Matt will come back in. I just got to. Reconnect. Hello. Sorry about that. I think what happened there was Charles came in. He'd for some reason I didn't see him on the email, so he just came on the last link.
I wonder if it's because I think he came in on the wrong link.
Yeah, it's all right. You seem quiet now.
It's going to refresh.
Refresh. Okay. No, Charles, let's hear you. 1, 2,
hello,
testing.
hello. Hello, hello,
Yeah.
hello. Can you hear me now?
I can, yes. I think.
Am I quiet?
It could be.
That's better.
Yeah, Matt. I think can you get any more gain out of anything, or are you just on your internal mic? Yeah.
Yeah, I can turn that up if you want a bit more. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Not quite so much. Split the difference.
Okay. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. How's that?
That's pretty good.
Is that okay?
I think we're good now.
Can you hear my synth?
I don't know. Yes, I can. Oh, he's got audio routing.
Yes.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Is it too loud?
No, that's fine.
I can't hear it.
Oh, can't you?
Never mind.
So is it working for me as well?
I feel a bit like Where's Wally? That's better. I'm a bit further up in the... because I had to bring my camera forward because I've got a shelf with a monitor on it, which didn't quite work. Right, so we have Charles, we have Matthew, we have Yoad. Right, okay. Well, we're not. We're early. We can't go early. That would be. I don't know. It feels like I could go late, but I can't go early. I don't know why. Why is that? Because people might miss. People won't miss something.
I once missed a flight in Brazil because the plane took off early. I came to the airport and they said it was gone already.
Oh, really? Why? Did he have to get back for his tea or something? That's bizarre. When we were at Super Booth, there was a boat that went up and down the Spray, take you back into town, and the guy used to go early, and it was the last boat of the day, so you'd spend time sort of go, right, okay, finish the day's work, we'll get to the... It's like, no, he's just gone. Like, what, 10 minutes early? Why? Why would you do that? Was the boat full? No.
Oh. I got sunburnt on that boat on the way home. I thought, oh, it's a really lovely evening. I'll sit up the top deck, chill out. And then got back to my hotel, and I was like, oh, no.
Watch out, yeah. We got to watch out there.
Yeah, man.
So I'm just going to ask the chat room how the levels are. I'm hearing myself okay. I don't know if everybody else is. I can give myself a bit more level, but okay. I think we're all right. Right then. What's the time? Let me get me. Yeah, thanks for joining us. I know it's just a hot day to be. Actually, it's too. If you read the UK press, we're supposed to not stay in. We're supposed to stay indoors, aren't we? It's so dangerous out there. Some part of the UK has got 35 degrees, and that means you shouldn't go out because it would be.
Yeah, I don't.
Is it the heat or the fallout?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure which. Yeah, one of the two. Right, okay. I think we're ready to go. Everybody stand by. Hello everybody, welcome to Sonic Talk episode 542, recording today on Wednesday the 25th of July 2018 here in the scorching UK. They told us that this week was going to cool down and we were going to have a bit of a break in the weather, but it goes on, which is all right by me because I'm going to WOMAD this weekend with my daughter and I don't really fancy a muddy festival appearance. I think I'm just looking forward to sitting in the shade and just chilling out. Although the ground is going to be incredibly hard. I might need some extra mattresses. Anyway, this is the podcast, Sonic Talk podcast. We talk about music technology, all things to do with synthesizers, instruments, software, music production, live performance, controllers, all that kind of stuff, plugins, all of the things that are associated around the production of music, whether it be electronic or regular. So I want to say thank you very much for everybody coming. I also want to say thank you to Isotope for providing the show prize. In fact, I'll start with that because sometimes you might miss it if you're go away for a cup of tea halfway through. So if you want to win a copy of Isotope's Vocal Synth 2, we have a prize this week and we're looking for the hashtag Creative Vocals and the hashtag Vocal Synth 2 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. Yeah, it's a Twitter competition and you can, if you enter that, we can pick a winner from all the tweets that come out with those facts on. That's the hashtag Creative Vocals, the hashtag Vocal Synth 2 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. And if you do that, you'll be entered into the competition to win a copy of Isotope's Vocal Synth, which is an excellent vocal processing, vocoding, mangling, all sorts of stuff, lots of effects on there. In fact, we'll have a little bit later on where we'll announce the winner of last week's competition, so stay tuned if you want to find out that. And we'll say hello to our guests. I think we'll start off with Mr. Charles Chicky Reeves, because he's been out on the road again. We haven't seen him for a while. Got a lovely backdrop there. I think that's the Matrix Brute behind you. Is that a Rhodes 73?
Yes, it is. Mark 1. But it's got a Mark 2 top on it, though.
Ah, okay. And what's that? Pro Tools on the right-hand side there? Can't tell
Pro
what that
Pro Tools, and UA console.
is that a is that a 4K screen you got behind you?
It is. Yeah. I use that as the main monitor because so that when my clients are sitting here, they're not like trying to look over my shoulder to see what I'm doing. They can actually see the whole time what I'm doing.
Can you see it? Though?
Yeah, it's very handy.
Because I find the problem is the resolution then decreases, the font sizes go down. Or do you change the system settings to make it all look bigger, or have you just got good eyesight?
No, but I have really good eyesight with my glasses on. But there's a strangely with that monitor there, it's at a certain distance. It used to be back about a foot from what it is now, and it was at this perfect distance where I couldn't see it with my glasses and I couldn't see it without my glasses. Now I can take my glasses off and see that.
That's well, when you get to the state, then you're heading toward the territory of bifocals there, I'm afraid, my friend.
Yeah, and I'm going to avoid that as much as possible.
Well, I don't know. They can make it. They don't have the lines across them anymore. They can make them kind of ground, so you don't really notice it. Anyway, it comes to us all. Anyway, Charles Chicky Reeves, of course, sublime-uk.com, sound engineer to the stars, out on the road a lot, also songwriting, production, mixing, all that kind of stuff. Check out all his stuff at sublime-uk.com. Oh, God, it's a mouthful. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. And we'll also hop over to Mr. Yoad Navo, who I said was sitting there looking very godlike in his kind of dimly lit studio and his beard of wisdom, which he seems to have developed there. Yoad is, of course, mix engineer, producer, songwriter, well, all sorts of stuff. Also developer for Waves.
Well, not too many, because when you say it like that, it sounds like, you know, master of none. And I wouldn't
okay. He's terrible at the things we didn't mention.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
But really good at the other stuff. So you're in London today. What are you working on at the moment? Are you mixing now, or are you kind of software developing?
Both. Mixing quite a few interesting projects, and also had a really good few writing sessions recently with very young and incredibly talented new signs for a few labels. I can't name names, but
no, sure.
Quite amazing.
Do you get a lot of that stuff where people come into the studio and develop the ideas and you know, that's your kind of, you sort of help them realize that stuff? Is that?
Yeah, I do that a lot. I do a lot of songwriting from scratch, which is my preferred way of working with new artists, because you just jump in the water and you write the song, and then it's amazing how I can get along with a 17-year-old, you know, after 40 minutes, you know what I mean? And we have a lot in common, which is the track that we're working on, which otherwise could have been very awkward. But there's when it flows, and when you have a nice flow and vibe, then it's really magical. And then you, at the end of the day, you come out of the session with a track. That's what you know. It never stops exciting me, even though I've done it quite a few times now.
Yeah, well, it's the international language of music, of course.
Exactly.
Breaks all, yeah.
Yeah, just love
that sounds really good fun. Really good fun.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And we also have Mr. Matthew Hodson. Matthew Hodson is back in his... I can't tell, because this new monitor I've got, the colour balance is really off. Is that kind of... Are those purple walls? Are you going for the kind of Prince vibe in there?
I don't know. I don't know why I chose purple. I did spend a long time thinking about it. I used to work in a studio in Hackney, and there I used to engineer for some great producers, and all their walls were purple. So maybe I've been inspired by that over the years. I don't know. You have a purple backdrop too, don't you? When you're doing
we use it's not. I haven't switched the lights on today, but we use a purple wash LED light. So and it's purely because we experimented with lots of different colours, and it was the best colour for less noise in the video when you've got the lights dimmed down. So it's a good colour for working with video, and it seems to have just stuck. But yeah, I mean, lots of BBC use it as well, I think, in a lot of their studios. I think it must be just a good colour for video.
I quite like it. I don't know. There's no windows in this room, unfortunately. I couldn't put any in just because of the amount of noise that would come and go from it. So I had to entertain myself with a colour choice, and I went for purple. It does the job. I don't go too crazy in here. But usually I've got the lights dimmed down a lot more anyway when I'm working. But I've just been doing a live stream, literally just finished it about an hour ago, and I've had to have all the lights on in here and brighten it up a little bit so you could see everything that I was doing correctly. And it suddenly got really, really, really hot, as you can imagine.
Yes. Oh, so what have you been? So you fired up the modular and whatnot?
Yeah,
yes?
yeah. Just working on. Managed to set aside some time really to start on the EP, my first EP for Fat Cat Records, and what I did, I stripped down the studio and I've reset it all up. So I've got MIDI controllers here. I've got a Euro rack behind me here. I've got all my effects, all my Eventide and Big Sky and delay pedals, and then mixer over here. So basically, I'm just, you know what it's like when you're starting new music. It can be a little bit overbearing to just kind of sit down and start just jamming out anything. So I thought I'll start with sounds. I'm just starting with a palette of sounds. So I'm working with bass at the minute, trying to find some really great bass tones and distortions to go with it, and just building up some really interesting sounds that I can use and throw into the pot when I start composing, really.
Right. Okay. So is that working at the moment? I asked that question as if I don't know. I know it's working because I've said,
yes.
You press play and said, is it coming through? So you got a patch running at the moment.
Yeah, is it running? Can you hear that?
Yeah.
So that's I can't actually hear it. So that's Schwayman VCO6 running through the Torcido by Roland, which I've created my own bespoke stereo distortion patch within there. And I'm also using the Forum SA toner, which just for a little bit more distortion. And I'm combining all of those together through a compressor, sort of gelling them together really nicely, and then through this WMD Overseer filter at the minute.
It's interesting. Those Roland, the Torcido, it's quite it's like virtual Eurorack, wasn't it? Where you can then program. They've kind of gone under the radar a bit because they made an editor and stuff, and there was some really interesting things you could do with that. I don't think they really ever took off quite.
No, I mean, I've shied away from them for a little bit, but I've been getting into distortion, particularly stereo distortion, and I just realised that the Torcido is actually built around distortion. So, yeah, I bought it about 4 months ago, and then I've just really got into just building patches within it. It's really interesting what you can do with it. I'm really enjoying it. It gets hot very quickly. I've noticed that, and a lot of people saying that it uses up a lot of power when it's racked inside of Euro rack land.
Okay.
I'm liking it. It's great. I think it's cool. I'd like to see more. I'd like to see actually if they're going to do any more with this kind of stuff, Roland.
It would be a good idea. I mean, it's almost like a Nord modular kind of vibe, isn't it? It's like a tiny little Nord modular that you can program up. And,
you know, Nord's so ahead of their time, Nord, when they brought out all that stuff. The things you can do on it, on the Nord. Fantastic.
Right. Excellent. Well, we're going to go for something slightly. Well, actually, let's start with the new release of the week because, as we know, the Drum Brute Impact came out, and I'm going to play a video that I did with as a little jam with, rather than to begin with. So I'm just clocking up the arpeggiator and the Grandmother because I published that review this year, and I was just triggering the arpeggio at random steps, which is why it. But it's actually not a bad little machine. I can't remember what I do next, probably something really embarrassing. But yes, that was the unofficial video for the launch of the Drum Brute and the Drum Brute Impact, and the official launch has got the same slightly tangential marketing approach that Arturia have employed over the last couple of releases. They're very fond of having dancers involved, and this dancer is going to dance. Although it's bordering on the slightly exploitational imagery, I think, but it's still. This is the Drum Brute Impact anyway. That's really not the case in point. So analog drum machine, 10 voices, based on the Drum Brute, but with completely different voicing. Same sort of sequencing, really good sequencer actually. I think the sequencers really kind of feels like it makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately no P-lock or anything, but this thing's only 279 quid. Anyway, it goes on, you know, the dancer gets more excited and the beats get more exciting and it all kind of builds up, and I think the idea is then you're you're thinking, hey, if I get one of those, that might happen at my house. Probably not, though, I'm guessing. I know, Charles, you've got an Arturia thing there. I mean, have you tried the drum brute? I mean, is it something that's... I mean, the analog sounds, I mean, limited though they are, they're massive, I have to say.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think... So this one has the distortion, and the drum brute has the... filter sweep or something?
Yeah, it's got a resonant filter.
I thought about buying the drum brute, and then I saw that this was coming out. And I think this is actually what I'm going to get. I want a dedicated drum machine instead of just using Ableton or my Korg Volca Beats or something like that. Yeah, it's a shame about that video because it's basically, trying to use sex to sell it. And it's
sort of bordering on that, isn't it? And I think that's a little bit, that's not so cool these days. And it's not necessary because it's, it's quite a good machine.
But they're French, so.
It's art.
Yeah, it's art. But yeah, if they'd taken her out of the video, I think it would have sold itself. It's such a great sounding machine. I'm really excited about it. So when is the launch of that? Do you know?
Well, it's launched. I think it's going to be in the shops in. I think it's like next month. I think it's pretty close. I mean, I think they're in the boat or at customs or whatever in many territories. I've just reviewed it, and I have to say, initially I was a bit like, well, I don't know, it'd be nice to have parameter lock on this sort of stuff. But then you think, well, it's a 279 quid drum machine, and once you start getting into it and breaking out some of the individual sounds and putting them into effects, it really starts to make sense. It's just, you've obviously got a sort of limit. The analog sounds are a limited palette of sounds, certainly just as a mix out kind of thing. Obviously, if you break things out, then you can affect them a lot more. And I guess that's what most people did with, 808s or whatever. So it definitely has a kind of vibe. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm really, really interested in getting one.
Right.
I love the idea of it. So yeah, I don't see why not. And I wasn't completely sure about the drum brute, but this I'm definitely interested in. I love that color effect. That's really nice. It's a really nice sound.
Yeah, it works well on some of the voices and some of the. I mean, there are a few downsides, but anyway, Yoad, I don't know. Are you a drum machine guy, or would you prefer to do everything sort of from the box?
I used to be, obviously, but these days I have my. I think I mentioned it. This Arturia, which I can't, the BeatStep Pro, which is rooted to. I created a very elaborate Logic environment where each pad goes to its different EXS instrument, and I can play the pad and turn the knob, and it scans 108 and 28 samples within that EXS program. So I would load 128 kicks. 128 snares, blah blah blah. So each pad and its its knob. So I can play the pad. I can either program it on the BeatStep Pro itself.
Build a kit on the fly.
On the fly, because the problem is when you load a drum kit, is that it's already mapped, and if you want to change the kick, once you have the pattern going, you have to go in and load samples and things like that. But once you have 128. And I have 16 of those, so it's
genius. What a great idea!
It allows me for great flexibility. So in terms of the actual sequencer, I can maybe do maybe we can do like a short video, something where I show this, because I think it will be interesting for some people, because it shows the flexibility of the environment in Logic, and it's just. For me, it really opened up again the sort of feel of a drum machine, because you can program it on the sequencer. It runs on MIDI clock and all that, and you can just do it. And then with the random function, which I think it has on the drum brute, it creates really amazing stuff. And then I just record 5 minutes and choose the bits, And it's all in MIDI, and the sounds are actually EXS sounds, 16 EXS.
That is a really good idea. I guess you could apply the technique to other samplers. You just because each. So are you so the knob just sends out its own unique CC, which you then map to whatever changes the samples, right?
exactly. It changes the parameter of a transformer that runs in, but it's more complicated than that, because you have to split it to different channels and to different the notes, because basically what I want is to eventually record the final note after the knob. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want to record the MIDI and then having to do the transpose in real time. So
Right.
it's quite an elaborate system. I had to cheat Logic, and it all happens before the sequencer input. So it all happens
Yeah, I
before
see.
this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it took me a little bit of time to program, but it's amazing. So for me, the kind of work and feel of a drum machine is already there. What I am interested in with this drum brute is the sounds, because it just sounds amazing. It sounds beefy and fat and
Yeah, the kick. I put the, normally I put the wave through the scope and the frequency analyzer on the screen behind me, and I did that with the kick, and it starts when it's tuned right up. It's about 65 hertz, and it just goes right the way down, and then it goes but sub 30 hertz, and there's a massive fundamental and a load of stuff flapping about underneath that as well. So when you tune it right down, I mean, you're getting crazy amounts of bottom end if you want it. I mean, obviously you can EQ that out. So yeah.
So for me, it's very tempting basically to get one of those. I would probably like. My problem is, because I work in front of a desk, is that I don't have a lot of space to put stuff, hands-on stuff. So the what's his name? The BeatStep is my main kind of. I have a small keyboard in the desk, and the BeatStep Pro is my main kind of pad thing. Although I have a machine and all that. I have to say that the pads on the machine are lovely.
Yeah, they are very good.
On the BeatStep Pro, I'm not into them so much. But for me, it would be a matter of probably getting it as a sound module, really, and to incorporate it with the existing setup and with
it is quite small, so it is quite a compact thing.
Is it similar size to the BeatStep Pro? That type of thing? No, it's probably
smaller. No, it's smaller. It's like the pads of the BeatStep Pro, and then a bit deeper. So it's not as wide as a BeatStep Pro. Yeah, it's quite small.
Wow, interesting. I'll definitely look into that, because it sounds amazing. I wanted to get an analog drum machine. I was looking at the Vermona, and I was looking at BeatStep. Not BeatStep, Drum Brute.
Drum Brute, yeah.
And the 808 or 8 or whatever it's called, the new Roland thing. But from everything I looked at, this one seems like the most reasonable one to get.
Well, to be honest, I'm now going to have to go and program my BeatStep Pro to do what you did, because that. One of the worst things, the thing I hate about assigning pads is assigning pads and mapping MIDI notes. But if you're just flipping through sounds, that makes such a lot of difference.
Exactly.
Matt, I'm guessing you've probably got plenty of things that will make analog drum sounds and a much broader palette. Oh, is that the Nansverg? What's that?
This is even smaller. This is the drum computer, and this is
MFB,
by MFB. 522, and basically it's an 808. It's got individual outputs on it. It's got MIDI.
Wow.
It takes MIDI clock, and it's such a bad boy. It sounds so big. The kick drum on it's brilliant. Having said that, I've just sold it. Someone's just got this off eBay. Reason being, I've actually got a TR8S, which I've been using, and I'm really into that, basically because you can perform with it. It's got filters on it, it's got effects on it, and that's a big thing for me when I'm going out playing live. Having a machine, a drum machine that you can add effects on, you can filter on the master or individual things. And also when I'm in the studio working with a lot of electronic artists, we want to craft sounds quite quickly, and the starting point might be an 808 or a 909, but we might soon want to sort of tweak it into something completely different. And you can't really do that with something like this, bless it. But it's still really cool. I really like.
I guess also, because you've got all that modular stuff. I mean, the TR8S, you just if you make a really nice sound of the modular, just sample that in, and then you've got that in a kit. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it syncs as well to the modular really easily. It's got I think it's got its own dedicated clock in for it, so that's just really good. What's also interesting about the TR8S, again going back to misusing equipment, is you can load longer samples into it. So you can, not meant to, but you can load small loops into it. And if you've got those loops kind of running at the wrong tempo, drum rhythms and things like that, you can get some really interesting percussive stuff going on just by changing the tempo and the samples kind of.
Yeah, because it doesn't do stretch, does it? It doesn't do
no, it doesn't. Yeah, that's right.
Stretch or anything.
But by putting
have you come
putting
across
them on each step, it's quite interesting.
Have you come across the drum brute or the well, you won't have come across this yet, but
yeah, I had to play with the drum boot when it came out, and I'm a big fan of Arturia. I've got the Beat Step, I've got the Micro Brute as well. Love this thing. Again, connects to the modular really easily with CV and gate. But the drum brute for me, those sounds just didn't set my brain on fire. I don't know what it was, the kick and the hi-hat, and that it just didn't do it. This looks like they've maybe took some of that on board and
it's got more bite to it. This has definitely got more bite.
More bite. I think that's what it is. But for me, what I'd really like to see on something like this is I'd like to see maybe 2 or 3 of the first channels being just kick drums. So you could have kind of 3 different kick drums, because ultimately they're the thing that we always ask for. You know, what does the kick sound like on it? What does the snare sound like on it? Imagine if you had maybe 2 or 3 kick drums you could have, maybe 2 snares you could have, hi-hat open and close, and something else. I mean, who really goes, oh, well, how does the cowbell sound on this one, you know?
Yeah, I don't know why they put a cowbell on it. I personally, I mean, and I say it in the review, I would have preferred to have a rim shot and have a separate out for the rim shot, because you can use the rim shot to trigger. I mean, in fact, David Ireland, when he did a review of the not the TR8S, but the System 500 stuff, he had the TR8S running, and he was triggering this is the trick I got from him, actually, because he was triggering arpeggios just from a rim shot pattern, so that the arpeggio would have just been straight, but he was just stepping through it rhythmically rather than just by a clock division. And I really like that technique. I think it works really well.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. But the ability to maybe have 2 or 3 different kick drum sounds running at the same time and bring them in, you could tweak one as you could have one muted, totally tweak it for your next part of the set and bring that in. I love having a distorted kick drum and a clean kick drum happening at the same time as well, so to merge them in as well, just for different
I know what you're saying.
Content.
Well, that sounds like the drum brute's more for you, because that's got 2 kicks. I think it had 2 kicks, and one was more 8080 and one was more 9090. Those are.
But this Impact's got the distortion, right?
That did sound nice.
That excites me. And you've got it on the master, and then you've got it on per channel, basically.
No, not per channel. No, the color, on the kick, the color brings in a sort of distorted element to it, but it's not the same that's happening on the output. So it's not quite the same.
You can have its own distorted kick, and then you can add the distortion on the master on top of that.
Yes, but then the distortion will be everything. You know, it's across everything.
Yeah.
But when you kick it in, it really adds quite a lot of smack to it. It's quite a nice character. I mean, you can go too far, obviously. And I was looking at the frequency range across the actual, when you're running hi-hats and stuff, and literally, you know, I've got a 20 to 20 analyzer on it, and it goes past that at either end. You know, there's stuff happening below and stuff happening above. You know, the hi-hats and the cymbals go like this, and then that's when you get to the end of the analyzer. You know, it's kind of quite... So there's plenty of top-end content in it. Awesome. But yeah, 279 quid, hard to argue against that, really. Yeah, I think it's going to be a hit.
I wonder if Behringer is going to come out with an analog drum machine for like 70 quid or something.
Well, the 808 clone that they did, the 808 one that they showed at Super Booth, that's analog.
How is that sounding?
I mean, in a room through a speaker, you know, not ever having owned an 808. I mean, it sounded all right. You know, it sounded like, and it has a transient shaper, which you can apply to individual tracks, so you can get that kind of smack. I mean, I don't know when it's going to be coming out, obviously.
Both attack and sustain kind of thing, because I find the sustain function on transient designers or transient processors I use it a lot on drums, a lot more than the attack, because for the attack you have compression, you have EQ, which can emphasize different parts of the kick drum or snare drum. But I love playing with that sustain, you know, to get that exaggerated at the end.
Right,
And
I
you
don't
can,
think so. I think it's just a one
it would
knob
probably be
amount
the attack.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not so
actually,
sure.
with one knob, you can also do like one end is the kind of attack and less sustain, and the other is the other way around. So interesting.
Well, there you have it. But yeah, that's going to be out, like I say, probably in a couple of weeks. Our review will probably go live tomorrow because I'm not going to be around so much on Friday. So I'll probably publish that tomorrow if you want to check that out. Okay, so I think what we'll probably just do is the competition for the Isotope, if that's all right with everybody. So we'll just refresh everybody's mind about what Vocal Synth can do.
I'm feeling good.
So Vocal Synth 2, redesigned interface, new BioVox module, which gives track shaping, vowel shaping, vocoder, improved bands, CompuVox as well, so glitchy computerized vocals, and TalkBox. I mean, all these modules have very strong flavors, pitch correction, pitch snapping, all kinds of stuff, more vibe, as it says, lots more effects, and also the effects are reaudible, lots and lots of presets in there. So do check out Isotope's Vocal Synth 2. You just need to go to isotope.com/vocal synth. You get a 10-day free demo there. And we've got a competition for this. I already said what the competition was, didn't I? What am I saying? It's because I've changed things up and I'm so set in my ways. We have a winner for last week's episode 451, a chap called Frank Haleko, and his Twitter handle is fhaleko. That's HALAYKO. And it says, give me the 5 vocal synths so I could get my voice out into the world. Thanks, Isotope, for the great software, and to Sonicstate for the awesome videos. From Canada with love. So anyway, well, if you get in touch, Frank Haleko will be able to pass you on to Isotope. We'll give you a copy of Vocal Synth 2, and we thank them very much for their sponsorship of the prize this week. Right, here we go. How do you feel about... oh, that's not what I was looking for. Excuse me. It was this one. How do you feel about 808? It says, this great headline, Roland announces second 808-inspired sneaker, and obviously Some Bright Spark in the comments says, great, so now there's a pair, you can have one for each foot, but I think it's a variant, so there's different pairs. So there's the colorization, but they've gone into partnership with Puma, who've created this new, the Puma RS100 Roland, and there it is. If you're into, lots of people are into trainers, sneakers, whatever you call them, and collect them, and this one will set you back. I think they're going to be available in August. $100, you know, $130, and the RS. There's an RS0 and an RS100. So black and white, vibrant orange. And it's an interesting idea, this kind of idea for music technology clothes, because I mean, you know, as a reviewer, and many of us who are involved in music technology and maybe endorsed artists or whatever, we get T-shirts all the time, you know, so we're quite used to the idea. In fact, Charles, are you wearing a... No, that says sports, so it's probably not a musically inspired music tech T-shirt, but I know you could... I quite like the idea of this. It's sort of the idea that 808 can become fashion as well. I don't think there's anything too cheesy about it.
Well, 2 things. One, this shirt is my ironic I know nothing about sports shirt, because I tend to spend a lot of time with people who are following football and I have no idea what's going on. The other thing is, as far as Puma goes, I want to tell them, please take my money. I want one of these. I want a pair of these shoes. I really do. Yeah, I really do. And I will be very happy if anybody were to stop me on the street and say, hey, I know what those are. Yeah, I'm really excited.
You want to get down with the kids with your 808 sneakers, really? Wow, okay. Well, that's... I'm not sure how appropriate that is of men of a certain age, but, you know, I think you would wear them well. I think you're still the right side of... You're still... Yeah, exactly. You're still the right side of that, so that will work.
Yeah.
I think that anyone who knows what an 808 is must be over a certain age anyway. You know what I mean? So
that's true. Yeah, well, that's a good point. I don't know about fashion items in clothing. I mean, I remember there was a series of bathing suits which were sort of 909 and 808 kind of screen prints, which looked really good. I mean, they're quite cool actually, but it was very much, it was almost like I'm the DJ's girlfriend, or do you know what I mean? And the models were delightful, obviously, but it was an interesting idea. I don't know, Matt, you're kind of much more down with the kids in the fact that you're teaching a lot of them. Do you think any of them would go for this kind of thing?
I don't know if they would notice if I rocked up to the classroom with a pair of them, but you know, regardless whether these were TR-808 branded ones or not, I just think they are brilliant. These are the ones that I'm going to go for. They're the 09, I think. I just think they look really cool. I really like the colours. I walk around in a pair of bright yellow trainers currently, so I like anything with a bit of colour. Having said that, these are mainly black, but I think they look cool, man. I think they're good.
We're getting a lot of great suggestions via the chat room for themed clothing. Let me see. Where was it? Where did I see it? Yeah, the Moog. Hold on. Moog flip flops here. There's Priscilla Hughes. Hold on, I'm just trying to. Where's it gone? Behringer Cowboy. That's a good one. How about this? Behringer Cowboy boots. Where's the Moog flip flops? I'm just trying to find it. VCV rack. Hold on. Oh, it's going past now. Here we go. Moog flip. People, there's suggestions are coming up. Priscilla Hughes says Moog flip flops. That's not a bad idea. And what was the other one? Shoes with Eurorack patch cables, or certainly jack endings. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Would that be taking it too far if I took all my laces out of my shoes and used patch cables instead? Is that taking it too far?
I don't know. You could. They do cloth ones, don't they? Which would be a bit more flexible.
I've got some of those, the braided ones. Yeah, that might work.
I think that might be the equivalent of wearing a keyboard tie, but more niche.
Oh yeah, keyboard ties. Can't do that.
I mean, to be honest, that's the only thing that I can remember that is kind of music technology related clothing that I can think of going back over time. The keyboard tie, and that is really dodgy.
I think I'm going to wait until these clothes are actually functional, so they actually can make music. So when you step on the left foot, it generates a kick, and the right foot generates a snare, and your gloves are the hi-hats and whatever, and then you can, I'm going to wait till that happens. I'm sure it's around the corner.
There are
trainers that have John Travolta walking down the street, in
exactly, with your own beat.
He's doing the hi-hats with his hand.
We should point out actually that I think there's a number. I think it's Make Noise that do socks, and there's quite a number of companies that do kind of things like socks and underpants and stuff like that, which is kind of funky. It's more understated, unless perhaps you're wearing socks with sandals, and then you can say it loud and proud. But I know that's quite an interesting idea. But it's generally, this is another level of kind of, I guess, cultural validation of music technology, which is quite an interesting kind of concept in itself, I suppose. So I don't know. I don't know what else I would wear. I mean, there was because I got with the Moog grandmother, which went back today. Otherwise, I'd show you. There was a Moog Slinky, and I think when it originally came out, there was a Moog denim jacket you could send in a voucher for. I don't know. Moog denim jacket reminds me of those sort of late 40, early 50 somethings record executives with the leather jackets and doing the Harley Davidson thing, which I remember when I was doing the touring thing, doing when I was in my youth doing PA circuits and promotion circuits. We would end up inevitably in the restaurant after the radio show or whatever it was with the local record company representative, who was invariably wearing some kind of Harley Davidson leather jacket and all of the stuff, so it's like part of a uniform. So I think you've got to be very careful, because it can be quite cheesy quite quickly. Of course, we're all very soberly dressed and not wearing anything too outrageous, so I'd just like to say that. With that whole kind of concept about cultural validation is interesting, because there was this piece of news that came in, and I found this on Peter Kurd's. This is Kraftwerk, and they're just starting out. I think this is Space Lab, which is one of their tracks from some time back, and doing the gig, and then they linked up with the International Space Station, which is a bonkers idea. So this is the Stuttgart concert. They tied up with the European Space Agency. They actually sent an iPad into space with the last sort of shuttle that went up. Astronaut Alexander Gerst, who is right here. Here he is, and here's the iPad.
Internationalen Raumstation ISS
That's a version of Lima running an as yet unidentified synth, which he plays, and the first notes he plays coming up soon, which will see if you can guess what they're going to be. You've probably seen this news item, so you know. That's bonkers. 400 kilometers in space. You had to, really, didn't you? I mean, those are the notes you got to play. Anyway, he goes on and he starts to play a lead line, and which I'm guessing is the Space Lab melody. I'm not familiar with that tune. And then they're all playing in conjunction. And the technology, you know, they've got a 20-minute window when they can send this stuff. And there's like, I think it's a 3 to 5 seconds of latency. And the audio is coming back. He's not seeing any video. And so the band are following it as it comes in, and the whole thing kind of gets synced up. Crazy. I just thought, you know you've made it as a band when you're being jammed with in space by an astronaut. I mean, that is bonkers, isn't it? I don't know. What do you think about that, Johan? I mean, that would be kind of getting there.
I had a little tear in my eye when I saw this. Was for me, it was really moving because, like electronic music and space age and all that, and the 70s and the 60s, and it's all coming together, and the sounds. I love the concept of like sounds of the future from the 70s. You know what I mean? What would the sound of the future would be like? And that's all the Moogs and all that, and obviously Kraftwerk were pioneering all those sounds and all those kind of sequences, and them and Tangerine Dream. And for me to watch it, it was just absolutely amazing because it's everything together. It's that era and space, and it's happening now, like 40 years later. And I don't know, there was something about it that is really nailed it on the head for me.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I mean, it made a few news things, and Peter Kern on CDM Link did a piece on it and talked about the whole kind of concept, and it's quite interesting. But I guess it made the wider news. But you're right. I mean, it does seem very. I mean, there's a few firsts here. It's the first electronic music instrument in space, and the first live jam between Earth and orbit. So there we go. Mm-hmm. I know, Charles. I mean, this seems like the sort of thing. I mean, you do live electronic music events. I mean, if you had that lined up for your next OMD or whoever, concert, that would be a pretty awesome thing to be part of, right?
Yeah. Well, Andy from OMD is friends with Tim Peake, and I'm sure he's still going to be jealous of this because this is pretty amazing. and I like what you had said about it being like the future from the 70s, which to me is actually vaporwave music. That's why I'm really into it. It's retrofuturistic stuff. But yeah, that is quite amazing. wish I could work something like that out with OMD. God, that would be very cool.
I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine? It's like the concept of planning for a gig where you've got to send an instrument out into space for someone to play. I mean, that's
because
I know it's like 1,100 pounds a kilo to send it up into space too. It's not like it's some kind of cheap.
You've looked into it. You know how much it costs. So that's
I know how much it costs to send for every kilo. It's about, I think, 1,100 or 1,200 pounds, something like that. Yeah, it's pretty high up there. So yeah, I mean, it's like they have to think about absolutely every little bit of weight. So just, by the way, can you stick this iPad?
Yeah.
I just want to add that it looks like from the screen, it looks like it's a proprietary.
It's Lemur. It's Lemur. It's a Lemur interface.
But they've arranged the notes in a way that it will play the sequence that is right for the song. So they kind of allocated so there's been some planning in order, and I'm just imagining the amount of security checks and bug and QA that this app and this skin have gone through by NASA in order to make it kind of safe to send it to space, so to make sure that no one can from his iPhone here on Earth can take over the spaceship.
Wow! Imagine it's real James Bond stuff, isn't it? I know, Matt. It's a great idea, isn't it? I mean, imagine being that guy. I mean, it's was it Tim Peake who did he played Space Oddity?
David Bowie, didn't he? Yeah. But can you imagine the amount of pressure on this guy to get those notes right as well? I noticed like he slowed down towards the end just to make sure he got that. You know, if it was me, I'd probably got that last note wrong.
I wonder.
Yeah,
I wonder if velocity works the same in space.
Oh, hold on. That's a show title.
Oh, yeah.
I think they spent months training underwater with the iPad, probably.
Okay,
Yeah.
in space, no one can. In space does velocity
No
work? Okay. All right. So, or some derivative of that. Yeah, I like that. Oh, I'm sure I wrote something else down.
What an honor, though. I mean, just not only playing from space, but playing with Kraftwerk as well. You say you made it as a band, but you've made it as an astronaut as well. You know, to have said, "Oh yeah, I did a gig once with Kraftwerk from space." You know,
Yeah.
no big deal.
That's the line, isn't it? Yeah, just toss that one in there. Yeah, I like the idea of that. That's a great one. Yeah, absolutely right. No, brilliant. And more of this kind of stuff. But it's interesting because, I mean, I'm surprised. Even it's 400 kilometers above sea level. So it's not, I mean, it's a long way up. But I mean, I was expecting it to be like, 20,000 miles or something. But I guess it doesn't, in mid-orbit
It's a lot.
or low.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. But so it's 3 to 5 milliseconds delay for sending the audio back. Isn't all that bad. Apparently he had he had audio coming back, and the engineers of front of house had to ride the faders to make sure it didn't start feeding. I wonder what feedback sounds from space sounds like from space. That would be
Sounds like a flanger, probably.
You know what? I didn't see an audio lead on his iPad. Maybe it was there.
Bluetooth.
But,
Yeah.
Bluetooth.
Oh, is it
Ableton Link.
Oh, even Frank. Yeah.
Does Bluetooth work in space? Wow, now we're getting to all sorts of random
Doesn't
concepts.
even work in my studio half the time. Bluetooth.
it does. Bluetooth does work in space, but it becomes yellow tooth actually.
Ah, very good.
Good.
Okay, right. There was one other thing that I wanted to get in here. Did you see this is a video that was shot at Summer NAMM by Sound on Sound, which obviously then came out.
No.
What is it?
This is the brand new refresh of the fader port. So the fader port has been one of our most popular products. It's a control surface for, of course, Studio One, but a variety of other DAWs. And now, in the last year or so, we've put out the fader port 8 and the fader port 16. Now we've updated the single fader port to all of the new features.
So do you want to talk us through some of those features then? What's different?
We won't go through all of that. If you want to check that out, Sound on Sound channel, they've got it's like a 4-minute video, and they've got other stuff from Summer NAMM because they went over. We just couldn't make the trip, sadly, but so they got all the scoops on all of that stuff. But yeah, this has just come out. I think it's going to be $199. I think I reviewed the original fader port. It still needs power to make sure the fader moves because USB just doesn't quite have enough thing. But I've always, I think I've got an alpha track or something, which is, I'm trying to get back here because it's so useful for that sort of automation. I mean, I know sometimes you need to automate more than one fader at a time, but it's still a great idea. It's just never really, I don't know how many they say. They said it was one of their most popular products ever. I know, Matt, do you use controllers for automating and moving fader stuff or just?
I don't know if you can see, I've got the Behringer BCF over here.
Yeah.
And I've got the BCR as well, and that's usually set off at the side. For whatever reason, I'll have usually things in the box like filters, delay times, reverbs, just to ride those things, and obviously volume as well. Sometimes all at the same time. Obviously, this is one fader. This is great because I can sit there with 4 fingers quite happily and just kind of change things. I like to ride things during the mix like anyone else does. I'm big on automating reverbs and delay sends at the end of words and sentences and that kind of thing as well, and sort of manually ducking things as opposed to using a compressor to do that. So yeah, I do tend to use it. This one, I know a few people who use this and they really like it, and they have it sat there and it doesn't take up much space.
And you get transport control as well, so.
Yeah, that's all in there. It's quick to flick through the different faders with it. It's nicely laid out. It looks very ergonomic.
Yeah, and also it works in Ableton Live, this one as well, which is something that's not always the case for for some things. So that's kind of, yeah, it looks kind of cool.
It's great. I don't think I guess you guys are going to agree because you're using Des, but I still am a big believer in using faders, that kind of thing. I mean, modular, one of the reasons I got into it is because it is so tactile and you got to reach for it. And there's also the restrictions that it brings as well, in that you've got two hands and there's only so much you can do at once, which presents the music in a particular way, as opposed to having loads and loads of automation going on as well.
Interesting thought. I'll come to you, Charles, because I mean, obviously you've got an analog desk there. I don't know if it's got kind of VCA automation in it or anything like that. I mean, what are you a drawer, or do you like to actually, you know, have a moving fader? Or have you got anything moving fader?
I don't have anything not here. I mean, I have my Digico desk, but that's out on the road, which is obviously moving fader. But this analog desk, no. I like to. It depends on how many recalls I have to do. If I have to do a lot of recalls, like if I'm working on a soundtrack or something like that, you know, massive amounts of recalls, I will draw stuff. It's just so much easier for me. That's just the way my head works. I had thought about the fader port, but I haven't been able to really justify getting one. I don't think I would use it, honestly. I think it's a novel idea. Paul, for OMD Paul, uses one, and he really likes it. But it's just not my thing. I do
like
write faders
of the
a
mouse
lot when I'm mixing,
yeah.
but I use the console.
So do you use moving? Do you automate in a linear fashion for live stuff? Because obviously the songs have MIDI clock or something. Do you ever kind of do that, or are you doing mostly hands-on and scene changes based things?
Hands-on scene changes.
Yeah.
For every song, I've got a separate scene, mostly because there's so many things coming from different places, and some channels you just don't want up. And also they get what they have in their headphones. They have it at a certain level that they really like that doesn't necessarily work for the PA. So I'll maybe have something a little louder, a little quieter, whatever. But I spend a lot of the show just fingers on the faders, writing things up for the verses. I mean, for the choruses, pulling things back for the verses, ducking things. I have a lot of ducking that's going on, either using compressors or using Track Spacer, which is one of my favorite ducking plugins. But I am also I'm writing quite a few things. I'm very hands-on with mixing, and that includes in here too, because like I said, I have everything going through the mixer, and I will write things, and 0 is my nominal level, so I know if I need to get back, that's where I go back to 0. But I am writing things constantly in a mix, because I like the mix to have life to it, and if it's just running statically off of Pro Tools or Ableton or Logic or whatever, I mean, yeah, you can have levels drawn in and out, but there's something about a human touch to it. So
you get different kinds of curves, don't you? Because it's not a linear curve or an exponential curve. It's just a finger curve, which is whatever that is.
Yeah,
and that's
human curve.
Do you? The other thing I was going to ask before I come to you, Yoad, is when you're changing scenes, do you make the faders safe, or just do the effects and the EQs and the mutes recalls, or do you reset the fader levels as well?
It depends. If each one I have something slightly different. Generally, almost everything changes, except for vocal EQ. I will keep that pretty consistent. Yeah, just because I know we're talking about in a live scenario. Here it's a little different. In the studio it's a little different. But live, I'll keep the vocal EQ. I have that recall safe, and on all my gains are recall safe. Otherwise, everything's up for grabs. You know. I'm also running an external effects rack, and every song has a different set of effects going. I'm running like 8 different effects for every song, which vocal imaging, delays. Sometimes I'm using Valhalla. Sometimes I'm using EMT reverbs, things like that. And that's all running on a separate rack with a laptop and a UA Apollo 8 interface. So I have 8 ins and 8 outs.
Right.
And that goes back to the console.
Got you. Interesting.
And a chaos pad.
Well, nice. Yeah. Obligatory. Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, I don't know. Is your desk moving fader automation, or do you tend to work in the box?
It has Nicom 2 automation, which I just switch off. And actually, in order to save on electricity and on the wear of the motors inside, I've actually bypassed all the the motor. So the fader is now manual, although it has motors, but no one can use. I used to use Nikam 2. It's an awful thing for automation. So no, the answer is no. What I am toying with the idea of doing for years now is to buy one of these either big Tascam, you know, the 24 fader ones.
Oh yeah,
which
I
is
remember.
UE compatible or something.
Right.
And buying 2 of those, or maybe 3 even, taking them apart and putting the moving faders inside the desk, basically turning the desk into like a duality kind of thing, where because I can bypass the audio on the fader, so it doesn't actually get to the fader, and then use the faders just as controllers for Logic or Pro Tools. So this is definitely projects that I will get into at some point.
Interesting. So they just be MIDI CCs, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing that's worth pointing out actually also about this, the fader port, is it supports up to 1024 fader resolution. So if the DAW supports it, then you've got a nice resolution. It's not just 128; it's a 1024 fader resolution, which gives you kind of a bit more. You know, that's one thing that, you know, early controllers were pretty much just 1024. Then they went to sorry, is 120? Is 1024 14-bit? I'm not sure if it is. No, was it 8?
No,
yes.
it's 8-bit.
8-bit, okay, which should be enough for most, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I think that's coming out soon. There was also, I mean, inevitably, Behringer have got something not quite the same. It's got a lot more functionality, which actually also looks quite interesting. But I know their Etch Touch series took a while to come to market, so I don't know where they are in terms of when it's ready. But this has got a little scribble strip that looks like the same one as the X32 and a load of function buttons. Jog and shuttle wheel and that kind of stuff. That looks kind of pretty useful as well. Probably
looks
a bit
really
bigger.
good.
Probably a bit bigger. I don't know what the other ones are. And I like the Behringer fader stuff. I think, it's a USB hub. Okay, and it's got foot switch support. I think the fader port has foot switch support as well. Oh, yeah, and I think it comes with a load of overlay templates. So you just slot a different... Yeah, there we go. Which is a good idea. So it comes with all of those. So you just drop them on for whatever DAW you are. So, you know, actually that's a nice intro. I guess it's going to be similar or probably a bit cheaper in terms of price. But, you know, I don't know if you can get it yet and whether or not it will do exactly what you want. But, I mean, I like the idea. It's almost like a mouse for audio, isn't it? It's just like next to your mouse, you might just have one box, which is a fader. And it's something that I could definitely use. So when we're mixing the audio for video... You know, I have to draw these really kind of, because drawing automation in for ducking the audio below, you know, when the music's playing is really coarse. It doesn't really work. And I like just to be able to kind of quickly grab a fader and do it. But I don't know whether our NLE supports that kind of stuff. So we'll have to see. But it looks kind of cool. What else? We did that one. Gosh, I think we've actually gone through the tasks apart from
a new range of these Behringer MIDI controllers. I think they brought out some that replaced the old BCR and the BCFs. I think they kind of did some hybrids of the two as well.
Yeah, the X Touch series. Yeah, they took ages to come out. Yeah, those BCRs and BCFs. I used to have a BCF and I lent it to somebody. And it never came back, and I really regret that because I mean, loads of people use them, and they do. Contrary to the popular conception that Behringer stuff doesn't last, they seem to last forever. Those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gigged this to death, and it was so cheap as well. I wasn't that concerned about a pint getting spilt on it or whatever as well. But it's great, and they're all responsive in that it's two-way, and that's really important for me. So not only can I ride from here and it'll update, but you can do it from there and they move as well. And that two-way workflow is really important for me.
Yeah, no, and I think it's the same with the fader port and probably the whatever that one's called, X Touch 1 as well. Ooh,
yeah, they're really cool.
I think maybe we can probably. I did have this. I've had this Wind controller thing in for such a long time. I don't know whether.
I was about to say.
Whether should we just put it to bed because then we've completed the list. I think we should do it just for the sake of kind of completeness. So here we go. This is a very interesting thing. This is It's a new AV, which is a Wind controller, which is still, I think, in prototype. This is played by Mark Steiner, and he's just playing is that a micro brute or a mini brute? I think it's a mini micro brute, isn't it?
Micro brute.
And a load of reverb, obviously. And it's really, I mean, this wasn't really, the idea of this video, I think, was just to demonstrate how expressive wind control could be generally. And as we've seen, you know, the Roland Aerophone, and people use a lot of these stuff, and they do sound great on analog stuff. I suppose I should have done it last week, because last week would have been when we talked about the Aerophone. So I'm going to ask you, Charles, first, because you do a lot of live electronic music gigs. Do you ever have... Has anyone ever goes, I want to use one of these live, and has it ever made it to stage?
No.
I mean, not this
on top
controller.
of that, I'm actually a horde player, and I don't own one of these. I mean, I guess it's cool, but I don't know anybody who would use one. I mean, I don't
Star
know
Wars
anybody
band
who would use one. Yeah, you know, actually, about like in the late '80s, early '90s. Yeah, absolutely. You know, it was a way for the saxophonist, or as they may say here, saxophonist, to be kind of cool. But that kind of ended right about there. I mean, because I don't know anybody. I mean, like I said, I play sax, and I wouldn't want one. I'd rather just get a synth and play on the keys.
Okay, well, it's an interesting idea. I mean, you're entirely okay. So, Yoad, have you ever been set up for a recording session and someone shows up with one of these?
No.
Sort of things.
I've seen a prototype of a very, very interesting and weird instrument lately, which I can't disclose, but it was out there. But I think that the essence of this, for me, because I'm not a wind instrument player, so I can play the recorder, but for me, making the notes, playing the notes will not be as easy as it is on the keyboard. But I think that the main thing here is the breath control.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering whether it's worth actually reviving. I have a CS70 which has breath control. I don't know if it comes out of the MIDI mod. It has, probably not. But I have a DX7 which I can try. Haven't tried that for a while, but that could be a handy little thing to have. Just a converter, basically just a box that will convert breath control through USB. That could be something good.
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably a lot of these out there. I mean, I'm guessing also, Matt, in the world of modular, the expressivity really is quite a bonus, right?
Yeah, I think so. Having all that possibilities going on. Yeah, you can assign it to multiple things. I think I've probably said this on the past few one of these programs. Is about the keyboard and how if you're a new music producer and you still haven't gelled with the keyboard yet, then I would fully recommend picking up something like this, something new. You never know. If like me, I mean, I'm surrounded by keyboards, but I'm not a keyboardist. But I can't help thinking that if I had been presented with one of these, I might have got on with this more than I do with playing the keys. Do you know what I mean? For new music producers who aren't yet exposed to working with black and white keys, this might be the thing that works for them, that allows them to compose and produce music, basically.
Yeah, I think that's a fair. I agree. I know we're covering ground here, but this is really just me trying to finally get this topic off the list. So forgive for those listeners who go, "Oh, you talked about wind controllers last week." Yes, we did, and now we've talked about this. But now I can remove it forever, and it feels like I now can start a new series of topics without this one dangling off the bottom, which it has done for the last 6 or 8 weeks. So anyway, thank you very much for helping me be a completist on that.
Yeah, we got it.
We got it. We covered it. To some degree. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Yoad, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure having you as ever. Thank you for letting us know about that, the way you use the BeatStep Pro. I am actually going to have to experiment with that. And maybe we can, you're right, maybe we can do a video. That would be really interesting. So I hope you have a good week and productive, and your air conditioning stays working. Yeah, I'm sure it will. Anyway, thank you very much, Joed. And also, Matt, thank you for joining us too. I'm guessing you're in the summer holidays now. Are you going anywhere nice on your holidays? That would be a hairdresser question, but that would be a bit pointless, wouldn't it, really?
Well, I'm certainly not going to the hairdressers, that's for sure. No, I've dedicated all this week and next week to working on my EP and writing my stuff at this moment in time. We've just got an album launch in a couple of weeks for Knightstown, which is the group that I play with live, and I also I'm working with him on some new material as well, who's just come out on Fat Cat Records. So we've got a big build up for that, and yeah, we've just signed off some more music for EMI Sony Publishing as well. So I've just finishing those things off. I don't know if anyone in the chat room's done sync music and library music before, but writing the music can often be the quickest bit, but the deliverables take so long. You know, you have to give 30-second version without the vocals, you know, without the beats and so on and so forth. So I've got to go through 3 or 4 tracks there and get those delivered. So a bit of a deadline.
Well, good luck with that, and thank you very much.
Thanks
also,
for having me.
Charles, also thank you for joining us too. I don't know how long you're around for. You're in festival season, aren't you? So I expect you're flitting in and out of the place, yeah?
Yeah, I'm off to Germany this weekend, Germany and Belgium. Then I'm back, and then I'm off to some other festival the next weekend, and then I think I'm off for like a week or something like that, and then more festivals, and then a couple of cruises, and then all that time I'm trying to do this big movie project thing. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, thank you very much for joining us anyway. I know everybody's busy, so your time is always much appreciated. Anyway, that's it. That's Sonic Talk episode 542 signing out. We'll probably see you next week, assuming any of us have survived this heat wave that is continuing on. But that's it. Thank you very much. We'll all see you next time. That was Sonic Talk episode 542. Goodbye now. Thank you, folks. Let me just find my mute buttons. There we go. I must automate that muting. I'll get around to it one day. Maybe I need a fader port, although I don't need moving faders for this system. Yeah, thanks, folks. That was great fun. And yes, thanks for sitting through the heat if it's hot where you are. And we will... the reason I was asking about the fader moves is because I've just been asked to do... summer school sound for 2 productions for the theatre school that my daughter goes to. So one of them, you know, it's basically 14 radio mics, no tech rehearsal, getting sent a mic plot in advance, and I'm just figuring out what I should store in those scenes to actually speed that up. So I'm literally, all I'm really doing is storing, because they're swapping radio mics and stuff, so I'm storing the scribble strip and the mutes, and that seems to be it. That seems to be the strategy that I'm going for. I don't know whether that's the right strategy, but we'll see.
Yeah, I would do faders more than mutes, only because, you know, like if something isn't working, it seems to me it's a little bit quicker to quickly push a fader up instead of going, okay, which channel is it, and find the right mute. And like for me, it's always I prefer to do faders down and not mutes whenever I change scenes. It's just always a lot faster just to push a fader up really quick. You go, oh, that's the one. Yeah. Oh, maybe it's the console I'm on, you know, and I have sunlight glaring down on me, and I can't quite see whether or not the mute light is on or off.
Ah, yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'll be in a darkened room, so that should work. But I mean, I may have to change the channels and stuff. But I mean, you know, because who knows? I mean, the thing is, you'll do the tech rehearsal, and then, you know, little Johnny will have to go home because he's not feeling very well, because the first show is juniors, so they're really young, and the second show is the seniors, and so they'll be a bit more likely to kind of show up. So I don't know. We'll see. All right, thanks for that advice. I'll see you all soon.